Welcome back, everyone. You're tuned in to Today Assets Report, and let me tell you, today's video is one you do not want to sleep on. Every single day that passes, we are getting closer and closer to something truly massive happening with XRP. I'm talking about the kind of move that changes portfolios overnight, the kind of price action that people will be talking about for years. And I know we've been building toward this for a while now, but the pieces of this puzzle are finally starting to come together in a way that is undeniable. Today, I want to walk you through several major developments that are lining up right now, news that just dropped, patterns that are forming, and signals that are pointing to one clear direction. If you're someone who likes staying up to date on everything XRP, go ahead and drop an X in the comments section and smash that like button so we can get this information out to as many people as possible. LES, get into it. So LES, start with some breaking news that came out of Cointelegraph just today. Ripple has now officially announced that it is offering its prime institutional clients access to a full suite of regulated crypto derivatives listed on the Coinbase Derivatives Exchange, cleared by Nodal Clear, and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, at first glance, some of you might read that and think, okay, that sounds like a standard business update, another partnership announcement, but I want you to hold on for a second, because when you zoom out and look at what this actually means in the bigger picture, this is a massive step forward for XRP adoption at the institutional level. Ripple Prime is now deeply connected to some of the most regulated and respected financial infrastructure in the United States. And when you realize what that infrastructure is connected to, the whole picture starts to look very, very different from what most people are seeing on the surface right now. Here's where it gets really interesting, and this is something that I think a lot of people in the XRP community are just starting to connect the dots on. Just a few days ago, on March 2nd of this year, Ripple Prime was officially added to the National Securities Clearing Corporation's Market Participant Identifier Directory, what's known as the MPID directory. Now, the NSCC is not some small or obscure organization. The NSCC is one of the key subsidiaries of the DTCC, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, which is the backbone of the entire United States securities market. This is the institution that handles centralized clearing, settlement, risk management, and post-trade services for trillions of dollars in transactions every single year. The fact that Ripple Prime is now listed in that directory is not a small thing. This is Ripple planting its flag right in the center of traditional American financial infrastructure. And just when you think it couldn't get any more significant, news dropped today that the DTCC has a patent, an actual filed patent, that explicitly names XRP as a potential bridge asset within liquidity networks. Let that sink in for a moment. The DTCC, the organization responsible for processing and settling the majority of securities transactions in the United States, has filed a patent that highlights Ripple's technology and also references Stellar's technology as bridge assets within a modular bridge architecture designed for liquidity tokenization. The patent defines XRP specifically as a fast, low-cost, and highly liquid piece of operational infrastructure. This is not speculation. This is not a rumor. This is a legally filed, officially documented piece of intellectual property that names XRP by name as a component of the future of financial settlement. When the DTCC files a patent, the world pays attention, and right now that patent has XRP written all over it. Now let's talk about what the DTCC actually represents in terms of scale, because I think most people genuinely do not understand how large this market is. We are talking about a $4 quadrillion market, and yes, that's quadrillion with a Q. $4 quadrillion worth of value moves through DTCC infrastructure annually. To put that in perspective, the entire global GDP is somewhere around $100 trillion. So we are talking about a market that dwarfs the entire global economy by an enormous multiple. And there are people in this space, researchers, analysts, people who have been watching this for years, who believe that XRP as a neutral bridge asset integrated into DTCC infrastructure could capture a meaningful slice of that volume. If even a fraction of that $4 quadrillion market begins flowing through the XRP ledger, the price implications are almost impossible to overstate. Bitcoin would look small by comparison when that volume really starts moving. Something else that has been absolutely going viral over the past 24 hours involves a post from William Shatner, Yes, the legendary William Shatner talking about Cross River Bank, how deposits are FDIC insured up to $250,000 per individual and per legal entity. And Elon Musk responded to that post with one word: true. Now, on the surface, that might seem unrelated to XRP, but here's why people in the XRP community are paying very close attention to this. A researcher and content creator known as Mr. Man put together a thread that connects Cross River Bank, the Interledger Protocol, Elon Musk's interest, William Shatner's involvement, and ultimately traces the thread back to Ripple. And this connection isn't new. Ripple has been working with Cross River Bank since 2014. Over a decade of relationship building, infrastructure alignment, and quiet preparation. Everything is connected, and XRP sits right at the heart of it all. What makes this even more compelling is the background of the people who are now publicly stepping forward to champion XRP and its ecosystem. One of the most powerful voices to emerge recently is Ashish Birla, a longtime executive at Ripple who helped scale the company for over a decade before transitioning to the board. He recently gave an interview where someone asked him whether the bridge asset pitch for XRP was still valid, given that Swift is now exploring its own blockchain for settlement. And his answer was confident and clear. He said he is not afraid of Swift. Swift, he pointed out, has barely changed since the 1960s and is not a company built for revolutionary thinking. The future, he argued, belongs to new companies and forward-thinking institutions that are willing to bypass legacy technology entirely and move directly to blockchain solutions. And that transformation, he said, is already happening. Birla went on to point to some of the biggest names in global finance as evidence that this shift is not theoretical. It is already underway. BlackRock, Fidelity. These are not fringe players. These are the largest asset managers on the planet, and they are both now actively engaged in the crypto and blockchain space. When institutions of that size begin moving in a direction, it is not a trend. It's a structural shift. And XRP, as a neutral bridge asset connecting traditional finance to decentralized finance, is uniquely positioned to benefit from that shift. Birla described XRP's role as building fewer intermediaries into the global financial system, stripping out the inefficiency and cost of legacy infrastructure and replacing it with fast, low-cost, programmable blockchain settlement. That is not a niche pitch. That is a pitch to the entire global financial system. Birla himself backed up his conviction by founding a new company called Evernorth, which is designed specifically to help both institutions and individuals gain retail access to XRP and manage it as an active treasury asset, not just holding it passively, but deploying it to generate yield both on-chain and through traditional financial methods. He called the timing perfect, and looking at the regulatory clarity that is beginning to emerge in the United States, it is very hard to argue with that assessment. The combination of regulatory movement, institutional adoption, and the technical infrastructure that Ripple has spent over a decade building is all converging at the same time. And people who have been watching this space closely know that when everything lines up like this, the moves that follow can be breathtaking in their size and speed. Speaking of regulatory clarity, that is truly the final domino that needs to fall here. For years, the uncertainty around XRP's legal status in the United States kept institutional money on the sidelines. Banks, asset managers, hedge funds, they wanted to participate, but they couldn't take the regulatory risk. That environment is changing rapidly. The signals coming out of Washington right now, combined with the fact that Ripple is being added to NSCC directories and the DTCC is filing patents that name XRP by name, suggest that the regulatory green light is not far away. And when that green light comes, the institutions that have been sitting on the sidelines are not going to slowly tiptoe into the market. They are going to move decisively with enormous capital. And the price of XRP will respond in a way that takes most people completely by surprise. Now, let's layer one more critical piece of data on top of everything we've already discussed, because this is the supply-side story that makes the price case even more explosive. Since February of this year, approximately 7 billion XRP, that's billion with a B, has left cryptocurrency exchanges. 7 billion XRP removed from the market and placed into cold storage by holders who clearly have no intention of selling anytime soon. Let's break that down exchange by exchange so you can really feel the weight of these numbers. On Binance alone, 3.38 billion XRP has exited. On Bybit, nearly a billion, 770 million to be precise. On OKX, another 395 million XRP is gone from the exchange order books. This is not noise. This is a coordinated, large-scale movement of supply off the market. When you understand basic economics, supply and demand, this kind of supply compression is one of the most powerful price catalysts that can exist in any market, and it is especially powerful in a market like cryptocurrency, where liquidity can be relatively thin and price movements can be amplified. When demand increases, and demand is absolutely going to increase as institutional access expands, as DTCC infrastructure integrates XRP, as regulatory clarity arrives and the banks get their green light, and supply is simultaneously shrinking because holders are locking their XRP in cold storage, the resulting price pressure has only one direction to go: up. And not slowly, up. When conditions like this resolve, they tend to resolve quickly and dramatically. That is what overnight moves are made of, and that is exactly the scenario that is setting up in front of us right now. Think about the full picture as it stands today. You have Ripple Prime now listed in the NSCC directory, giving it official standing within DTCC infrastructure. You have a DTCC filed patent explicitly naming XRP as a bridge asset for liquidity tokenization. You have Ripple connecting its Prime institutional clients to Coinbase derivatives, offering regulated crypto exposure in a fully cleared 24/7 environment. You have cross-river bank connections tying back to Interledger and Ripple going back to 2014. You have one of Ripple's most senior former executives launching a new company entirely dedicated to XRP treasury management and on-chain yield generation. You have BlackRock and Fidelity already in the space. And you have 7 billion XRP quietly leaving exchanges while retail investors and casual observers are still debating whether anything is actually happening. Something is absolutely happening. The most important thing you can take away from today's video is that the infrastructure is not being built for a future event. It is already built and it is actively being integrated. The DTCC doesn't file patents for fun. Financial institutions don't add companies to NSCC directories as a formality. Ripple didn't spend over a decade building relationships with banks, payment processors, and financial regulators just to be overlooked at the finish line. The work has been done. The partnerships are in place. The regulatory environment is shifting in the right direction. The supply is tightening. The demand is building on the institutional side in ways that we haven't seen before. And all of these forces are converging at the same time, pointing toward a price event that could be one of the most significant moves in XRP's entire history. We are watching history being set up in real time. So here's where we stand right now on Today Assets Report, and this is truly the bottom line. XRP is not just a speculative crypto token hoping for a lucky run. It is a financial infrastructure asset that has been quietly, methodically embedded into the plumbing of the global financial system over the course of more than a decade. And now, as the regulatory doors open, as the institutional access expands, and as the DTCC and its $4 quadrillion market begins formally incorporating XRP into its architecture, the price of this asset has every fundamental reason in the world to make a swift and dramatic move upward. The holders who moved 7 billion XRP off exchanges already seem to understand what's coming. The question now is simply when, and based on everything we covered today, that when feels extremely close. Those are my thoughts, those are my opinions. Drop yours in the comments below, smash that like button, and we will see you in the next one right here on Today Assets Report.